Your Big 8 battles. One of those battles will be with the improving and passing Oklahoma Sooners, who remained unbeaten Saturday. Both Big 8 powers are chasing defending champion Colorado. The Buffs rallied for a big win deep in the heart of Texas. Highlights of those games and all the conference action are next on the Big 8 Gridiron Report.
This is the Big 8 Gridiron Report. And now your hosts, Drew Goodman and Dave Logan.
And hello again, everybody. Welcome to the Big 8 Gridiron Report. I'm Dave Logan.
And I'm Drew Goodman. 3 and 4 week for the Big 8 as a conference this week. The top three teams, the three teams nationally ranked, all win. Oklahoma, Nebraska, and Colorado wins down in Austin, Texas. Interesting story. Minnesota, loses big once again to Nebraska. And John Goodkunst, the head coach of the Gophers, had a funny statement after the ball game. He said, you can tell why they have great tradition here, because the fans are great, the football's great. It's a very uplifting experience. That until you look at the scoreboard, you're on the bottom end of a 56-0 affair, and you realize you're not part of the football program.
I think there's a lot of coaches that have found themselves in a similar situation, and Minnesota's had their troubles the last couple of years with Nebraska, but so have a lot of people.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly. They have really gotten hammered of late by the Cornhuskers. Let's check out the Big 8 standings. Nebraska, Oklahoma, Kansas State, 1, 2, and 3. Obviously, Nebraska and Oklahoma undefeated. Then K-State at 2 and 1, and Colorado.
And Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Kansas, and Missouri. Tough luck loser at Indiana this past weekend. Well, a team that much needed a victory this past weekend, the University of Colorado Buffaloes. They found themselves in a must-win situation even early in the season, because a nationally ranked team, they had not fared so well in the first 3 games. And I can think of a lot better places to find that must-win situation than in Austin, Texas against the Texas Longhorns. Let's go back to Saturday evening and see what happened. It was Colorado and Texas.
$75,000 Longhorn fans jam Memorial Stadium for Texas's battle with Colorado. Longhorn pride is back after David McWilliams' team upended Penn State in the season's first contest. Colorado had talked about opening up its offense, throwing the ball more, but it was Texas that took to the air early in Austin. On the Longhorns' second series, quarterback Peter Gardere hooks up with 6'5" Kerry Cash, a former All-State basketball player from San Antonio. He outleaps Dave McClewin, and Texas had an early 7-0 lead. Colorado quickly countered, finding a forgotten man in the CU offense. On 3rd and 18 for the Buffaloes, fullback George Hemingway, a non-factor since the Buffs' season opening tie with Tennessee, is wide open for Darian Hagan's 38-yard toss. Colorado had temporarily silenced the huge crowd, knotting the score at 7. Late in the first quarter, Hagan and Hemingway failed to connect, and it would cost Colorado the lead. Their botched handoff set up a short Texas drive that resulted in a 47-yard field goal for a 10-7 Texas lead. Then tailback Eric Bieniemy rallied the Buffs. On 3rd and 9, the senior takes a Hagan screen pass, finds ample running room and lots of blockers. The end result, 41 yards to the Horns' 8. 2 plays later, Scooter, who accounted for 70 of the 75 yards on the drive, scores from 1 yard out. Colorado was back on top, 14-10. A late Texas field goal made it 14-13 at halftime. It also gave the Longhorns momentum for the second half. On their second series, Phil Brown bolts over from short range, culminating a 14-play, 80-yard drive. And in the ping-pong affair, Texas now led 19-14 after an unsuccessful two-point conversion. Then Texas got the break the size of the Lone Star State itself. Kicker Michael Polik's intention was a line drive kickoff against a stiff wind. The result was a squirmy squib kick that eluded several CU players' grasp and ended up with the Longhorns. It led to another field goal and a 22-14 Texas lead early in the fourth quarter. But just as Texas had owned the third quarter, Colorado dug down deep and rallied in the fourth. Bieniemy, who rushed for 99 yards, bowls in from 3 yards out. Another failed two-point try made it 22-20 Texas. After CU's defense forced a punt, return man Dave McCluen worked his magic. Behind great blocking and great elusiveness, McCluen sprinted to the Texas 35. 7 plays later, Bieniemy went to work again, legs churning like fine-tuned pistons. The Los Angeles native scored his third TD. It was the game winner with 6 minutes left. A late CU safety from Alfred Williams, a Texas native, secured a come-from-behind 29-22 Colorado victory.
CU's down 22-14 early fourth quarter to the Longhorns, and they come back and win it, obviously. Bill McCartney afterwards said, this game showed great character, and they needed that kind of character, 1-1-1 coming in, and they have a tough schedule.
Well, they've got a tough schedule. They've had a tough schedule to date, and I think the Texas game may have been the critical game, if there is one, for Colorado. Had they lost and been 1-2-1, I think a lot of people might have very well written them off, not only for the remainder of the season, but certainly the Big 8 Conference Championship.
Doesn't get any easier. They go home to Boulder, but they have to play the Washington Huskies,
Tough
who
team.
pasted USC 35-0 this past week. When we come back, we'll look at a team that was throwing the ball this week, the Oklahoma Sooners. Seldom do they do that. We'll come back after this. Dave Logan always complains that I look up these trivia questions. I make them very difficult for him.
Yes.
This one he will remember.
Oh.
He probably doesn't want to remember, but in 1980, the Sooners broke a team record for touchdowns in one game. Dave, you know it well.
Yes, at that time, I was a member of the Cleveland Browns. Greg Pruitt, the former Sooner standout, also a member of the Cleveland Browns. And, of course, we were waiting to see what happened with that football game. Came into the meeting room the night before we played the Steelers, I think, and Greg had said, you guys scored 42 points on us this afternoon. I was all up in arms. I said, see, I told you. I told you. You didn't have to give them any points, and I told you it'd be closer than you thought. And Greg kind of smiled with that gold tooth showing. He said, yeah, but we scored 82. I didn't have much to say after that particular comment.
And if memory serves me correctly, OU could have scored about 102
Lord.
that day.
They might still be scoring had they not called off the dogs.
I'll tell you what, they just gave us the fullback in the fourth quarter. But the CU scored 42 points, not bad. OU was at it again. They hung another half-hundred on somebody this past week, but they did it throwing the football. Their opponents were the Golden Hurricane of Tulsa. Let's go back to Norman Saturday afternoon.
Things have changed in Norman, Oklahoma. Under second-year coach Gary Gibbs, Oklahoma is showing signs of changing its vaunted attack from Boomer Sooner to Supersonic Sooner, behind a newly discovered passing game. In OU's 52-10 romp over intrastate rival Tulsa, the Sooners attempted 25 passes, just 6 shy of the school mark set back in 1938. And the team's 12 completions were just 3 shy of the school record. quarterback Steve Collins is directing the new Sooner look. He tossed 2 TD passes on Oklahoma's first 2 possessions, both to wide receiver Arthur Guess. And the Sooners, in a very new way, had leaped to a 14-0 first quarter lead. The Hurricanes, obviously impressed with OU's ability to throw the ball, went to the air themselves with this connection to Frank Cassano for a 55-yard score that pulled the University of Tulsa back within a touchdown, 14-7. Finally, after more than 15 minutes of action, the 70,000 Sooner faithful saw some old-time Sooner stuff. The ground game. Completing just 1 pass on a 13-play drive, Sooner tailback Ike Lewis capped the 52-yard march with a 6-yard run. Oklahoma was beginning to pull away from a pesky Tulsa team, 24-7. Freshman quarterback Cale Gundy came in to direct the Sooner attack before halftime. But the Hurricane pass rush blew him away, and Oklahoma settled for its 17-point halftime advantage. Coach Gibbs must have had some inspiring words for his troops at intermission, because the Sooners came out with fire in their eyes for the third quarter. Again, keeping the ball on the ground. Oklahoma drove 72 yards in 12 plays. Collins, showing his running skills, gets the final 2 yards. The Sooners would score on their initial 3 possessions of the second half to take the wind out of the game. The final count read Oklahoma 52, Tulsa 10. With the Sooners passing for 200 yards and rushing for another 250. Big numbers offensively. And for once, balanced stats as OU moves to 3-0.
So the Oklahoma Sooners get their 3rd victory of the year as they blast Tulsa. And for the 2nd consecutive game, they open the contest with the pass. We've gone through the record books, and we haven't found an Oklahoma team or teams that have ever done that before.
How about this? They scored their first 2 touchdowns via the pass. You have to go all the way back to 1972, the last time Oklahoma scored 2 touchdowns, their first 2 via the pass. Doesn't matter, same result.
The Oklahoma State Cowboys were looking for their 3rd victory of the 1990 campaign, and they almost got it. They had a 21-7 lead in the 3rd period at Texas Christian University, but from that point on, it went downhill. Let's take a look at the action.
Texas Christian coach Jim Wacker would probably like to schedule a few more Big 8 teams, considering his teams come from behind. Magical performances so far in 1990. Opening day against Missouri, the Horned Frogs rallied to win 20-19. And Saturday, TCU pulled off another dramatic last-second win over Oklahoma State. The Horned Frogs got on the scoreboard first late in the first quarter on a 10-yard touchdown pass. But the Cowboys wasted little time in deadlocking the score. Subbing for starting quarterback Earl Wheeler, junior signal caller Kenny Ford runs the option to perfection. 44 yards for a 7-7 tie. In the second quarter, another poke backup would prove his worthiness. Vernon Brown, who plays behind star tailback Gerald Hudson, takes the option pitch and scores untouched as Oklahoma State took a 7-point second period lead. Watching Ford direct the Cowboy attack inspired starter Earl Wheeler. Back in the game late in the second quarter, the 6'1 sophomore connected with one of the league's best, Curtis Mayfield, and Okie State seemed in control 21-7 at halftime. But remember, TCU owns that comeback magic against the Big 8 in 1990. In the third quarter, TCU's Curtis Modkins, who rushed for 195 yards, scores to cut the lead to a touchdown. Oklahoma State took the ball and was driving downfield when disaster struck. Wheeler's pass is intercepted by Brad Smith. The turnover led to Clay's fourth quarter option run for the game-tying score with 13.5 minutes left. Again, Oklahoma State's miscues would set up TCU. Hudson fumbles the ball at his 24. TCU drove to the 1, but the march stalled. And the three-point try was perfect with just 30 seconds remaining in the ballgame. TCU led 24-21. The Horned Frogs benefited from yet another Cowboy turnover to score in the final seconds. Greg Evans nabs an errant Wheeler pass and goes all the way. The Horned Frogs must feel like the handsome prince after their second dramatic come-from-behind win of the year.
Well, I know the people in Stillwater probably don't share this thought, but having watched part of that game, I thought it was a fairly entertaining contest.
It was a very entertaining contest. Matter of fact, Pat Jones shares that thought. He said, this is a game I wish I could have sat in the stands and watched it, and then probably gone home about halfway through the fourth quarter when they were still winning.
That's exactly right. When we return, we'll take a look at what happened in Lincoln, Nebraska this past weekend. It was not a pretty sight for the University of Minnesota Golden Gophers. Don't go away. Well, time for trivia question number 2. Nebraska's NCAA home game sellout mark will reach what level in 1990? And I will give you a clue, Drew. The last time they played before less than a sellout crowd was back in the early 60s, shall we say.
Long time ago, huh?
Yes.
It's easier to get a ticket on the Concord than getting a ticket to a Nebraska football game in Lincoln. Well, I know they were probably sold out through most of Bob Devaney's tenure.
Sure.
Obviously through Tom Osborne. So I'll say somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 games.
That's not a bad guess. 175 to be exact. And I mentioned October 20th, 1962, the last time a Nebraska team played at home in front of less than a sellout crowd. That was against the Kansas State Wildcats, so it's been a long time.
Well, a normal sellout crowd in Lincoln this past week, and they were feasting on the Golden Gophers of Minnesota. They got it done very early, did the Cornhuskers. Let's return to Lincoln. Saturday afternoon, Minnesota came a-visiting.
Go! Go! Big Red!
Coach Tom Osborne had reason to worry as his Cornhuskers faced off against their northern neighbors, the University of Minnesota, before another sellout crowd in Lincoln. Osborne's first and second string tailbacks were hurt. The team's starting quarterback also was banged up. But as is usually the case at Nebraska, talented players were waiting in the wings, ready to showcase their talents. One of them is quarterback Mickey Joseph. The junior from New Orleans led Nebraska to 42 first-half points against an overwhelmed Golden Gopher squad. He used his great running skills twice, scoring on runs of 1 and 4 yards. Then he displayed his fine passing skills. Following a Minnesota turnover, on the Huskers' first play from the Gopher 27, Joseph connects with split end John Bostic for the score. Nebraska was blowing Minnesota right out of Memorial Stadium, 28-0 early in the second quarter. At the same time, the Husker defense, the vaunted black shirts, flexed its muscle against the Gophers' offense. Cornerback John Crippen's interception halted a Minnesota drive and set up another Joseph touchdown pass. It was a short one, a single yard, but it gave Nebraska a huge lead. 35-0 with still 8 minutes remaining before halftime. Despite missing its top 2 running backs, Nebraska's running attack didn't miss a beat. Third-string I-back Derek Brown, a Prop 48 casualty last year, ran for 103 yards the first 30 minutes and found the end zone one time as the Huskers headed for the locker room with an insurmountable 42-0 advantage. The Huskers' fourth-string I-back, George Achola, also benefited from the banged-up status of Nebraska's top running backs. The junior out of Creighton Prep in Omaha led the team with 123 yards rushing on a day that saw the Huskers churn out 564 yards of total offense. Meanwhile, the stingy Husker defense limited Minnesota to just 106 total yards. It was all Nebraska, 56-0.
Well, to say the least, Nebraska has had their way with the University of Minnesota in recent years. Matter of fact, since 1970, the Cornhuskers have outscored Minnesota 64-4 on average per game. That's not a pretty sight.
You know where Minnesota wants Nebraska next year?
I got an idea.
Off their schedule. Like most teams. By the way, to give you a further indication of how one-sided this game was, Minnesota's furthest penetration all day was their own 45-yard line.
Not good.
Not good.
Well, a better game happened in Iowa City, Iowa this past Saturday. The Iowa State Cyclones against the Iowa Hawkeyes, the in-state grudge match, and there was a little bit of everything. We'll take a look at it when we come back on the Big 8 Gridiron Report.
It's no trick. HSE will treat you to plenty of college football in October. The Southwest Conference kicks off the month with Houston, Texas A&M, Baylor, and Texas Tech. And you won't want to miss the big matchup between Houston and Arkansas, live from the Astrodome. College football doesn't stop there. You'll see action-packed coverage of the SEC, Big 8, WAC, ACC, and Pac-10 conferences. Southwest Conference Volleyball is served to you every Wednesday with the Whataburger Volleyball Match of the Week, highlighting Rice, Houston, Texas, Baylor, Texas Tech, and Texas A&M. Tennis celebrities head south to Boca Raton, Florida for the Chris Evert Far More Pro Celebrity Tennis Classic, followed by European Community Tennis from Antwerp, Belgium. Also in October, NHL coverage begins as the New Jersey Devils host the North Stars and Rangers, and the LPGA Tour heads to Tallahassee, Florida for the Centel Classic. Let HSE treat you to college football and more in October.
Off camera, Dave has really been angry with me lately because I've been making the trivia questions rather difficult for him. So this one, very, very simplistic.
I speak for the fans, Drew.
Yes.
The people watching the show.
Always do.
Yes, I do.
Last year, I'll even tell you this much, it was the same run. The longest run from scrimmage was also a touchdown run for what individual last year for Iowa State?
Got to be Blaze Bryant.
Yeah, I told
Great
you it's
running
easy.
back. Well, thank you.
No tricks to it at all.
All right.
Against Tulane, 72 yards.
It's not a bad run. Pretty good football player. And, of course, he did not play this past weekend, but Iowa State, his club, certainly did. In Iowa City against the Hawkeyes from Iowa. The largest crowd ever to watch a football game in the state of Iowa. 70,000 plus were there, and they saw a great offensive battle. Let's go back Saturday to Iowa City, the Hawkeyes and the Cyclones.
You never like to go to war without your top guns. But that's what Iowa State faced as it rolled into Iowa City, Iowa for its annual grudge match with intrastate rival Iowa. Cyclone quarterback Chris Peterson, one of the conference's best, watched with a knee injury. More importantly, the league's top rusher from a year ago, Blaze Bryant, also was a spectator, nursing a banged-up shoulder. But Iowa State is much more than that dynamic duo, as the Cyclones demonstrated Saturday against the Hawkeyes. Emotions always run high, as was demonstrated on the game's fourth play.
Now the fisticuffs break out on the field, and they're really going at it. Flags all over the place. Both benches are emptying. They're flying out there. The Cyclones and Hawks really mixing it up. And now Jim Walden throwing his players back, and the Iowa side trying to do the same.
The turnover that preceded the fisticuffs set the Hawkeyes up, and quarterback Matt Rogers took advantage.
Second and goal from the 7-yard line, double tight end. Rogers rolling out, looking to throw, and now he's chased. He blobs it up. It is caught by Tipley for a touchdown. A great catch by Michael Tipley.
Iowa State came right back behind Peterson's replacement, true freshman Bob Utter. The Michigan native's 1-yard plunge tied the score after 1 quarter. Then Iowa reclaimed the lead on the legs of running back Nick Bell.
Bell getting the handoff on the delay, breaking outside, cutting it back. He's at the 20, breaks the tackle at the 10, the 5, touchdown.
In his first start, Utter showed great poise. He would complete 20 of 32 for 235 yards and no interceptions on the day.
A long, long count. Utter to throw. Quick one, and it's caught. Touchdown to Glotfeldy. Utter with a slant to Glotfeldy. He was hit at the goal line. He's in for the touchdown.
This second quarter toss to senior flanker John Glotfeldy tied the game at 14. Iowa kicked a field goal to lead 17-14 at halftime. Then the Hawkeyes went wild in the third quarter. Rogers directed a 12-play, 77-yard drive, carrying the final 3 plays as Iowa jumped to a 24-14 lead. 2 more third-quarter Iowa scores moved Hayden Fry's team to a 38-14 advantage. But the Cyclones were not through.
3 receivers set to the left. This time Williams does not go in motion. Fake to him. Utter dropping deep, throwing downfield. He's got his man open. Touchdown. Glotfeldy makes the catch, takes it in for the score. Here's Utter handing to Williams. Touchdown. Sherman Williams breaking over the right side. Touchdown, Iowa State.
After Sherman house-paid Williams' touchdown, the Cyclones were down 10 with 11 minutes left. But the Hawkeyes came right back on a 15-yard Lou Montgomery touchdown run that put the game out of reach. Iowa survived against an injury-riddled Cyclone squad, 45-35.
Well, as Dave mentioned a moment ago, there was a lot of offense in that football game and a little of everything else. There was a brawl, one of those bench-clearing jobs, a baseball-type brawl.
Boys will be boys. That's all right.
Yeah, and penalty, unsportsmanlike conduct against Jim Walden, unhappy with an official's call. Coaches
are never happy,
right,
are they?
They're never happy. So it had a little of everything. Good news, by the way, Blaze Bryant will probably play next week against Western Michigan.
Yeah, that is great news. He's a terrific player, and of course he's had trouble staying healthy this year, banged up a couple of weeks ago, and you got to keep a guy like that on the field, in the backfield, running the ball, and nobody knows that better than Jim Walden.
Unfortunately, Iowa State loses their 8th consecutive game against the Iowa Hawkeyes. Well, the Kansas State Wildcats were trying to go into unprecedented territory, at least of late. They were trying to go 3-0 on the young season against Northern Illinois, and they looked good early. Let's return to Northern Illinois Saturday afternoon.
The vast and bountiful prairies of Illinois have not been friendly territory for Big 8 teams in 1990. Last week, Colorado was ambushed in Champaign by the Fighting Illini. This week, the Kansas State Wildcats watched a 3rd straight victory disappear in the final seconds in DeKalb. It was Lamb Night at Husky Stadium, and early it looked like the home team would be the sacrificial victim. K-State's Carl Straw's 2-yard run late in the first quarter put the Wildcats ahead 7-0.
They have a wide receiver right and 1 left. They will option to the far side of the field, pitching to the halfback. That is in the open field, Raymond Patterson at the 25 to the 20.
Northern Illinois rallied behind its quarterback, Stacy Robinson. His 5-yard run early in the second quarter pulled the Huskies even with the Cats at 7. Then Then K-State's explosive offense took charge.
Game tied at 7, 11:31 left to go. Now Straw went a little long on 2nd and 1, firing downfield for Smith. He makes a great catch. Campbell right, Jones left. K-State, long play count, back to throw is Straw. Deep drop. Now we'll try to run out of the pocket. Fires for the end zone. He's got a man. Touchdown, Frank Hernandez.
Marching 64 yards, Straw completed the drive with a 6-yard scoring toss to junior Frank Hernandez for a 7-point lead.
It's still taken at the 5-yard line by the deep man. And it's cutting to the left side of the 20-yard line to the 25. Fumble on the play. Kansas State trying to chase the football. It's still loose, and the Wildcats have it at the 36-yard line.
After a Northern Illinois turnover on the ensuing kickoff, Wildcat running back Pat Jackson folded up the middle for a 3-yard touchdown. And Kansas State was threatening to run away with it, 21-7.
Single setback Madden. Back to throw is Straw. Looking for the end zone. Fires across the middle. Touchdown, K-State. Frank Hernandez with his 2nd touchdown grab of the first half.
Another Straw to Hernandez connection accounted for the Wildcats' 4th first-half score.
Full wishbone behind Stacy Robinson. They will option to the near side of the field. Robinson keeps it at the 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Northern Illinois. Stacy Robinson on a 25-yard run on a 4th and 5 play.
The only player keeping the Huskies in the game was quarterback Robinson. His stellar 25-yard scoring romp kept it close at halftime as Kansas State led 28-13.
Full wishbone behind Robinson. 4th down, goal to go inside the 1. Robinson with a long count. Play action fake. Robinson pitches to Strasser. Touchdown. Double tight ends here. 2nd and goal. Handoff goes to Madden trying to churn into the end zone. Touchdown, Kansas State on a 1-yard run. Curtis Madden.
The squads traded touchdowns in the 3rd quarter, and Bill Snyder's team, with a 35-21 lead heading into the final 15 minutes, appeared destined for its 3rd win. But nobody told Stacy Robinson that.
Play action fake. He wants to throw the football with the Wynn throwing downfield. He's got a man wide open. Wynn makes a catch. 15, 10, 5. Touchdown. Northern Illinois correction, Strasser.
First, the Husky signal caller fired a 60-yard scoring strike. Then his 2 runs contributed to a short scoring drive that tied the score at 35 with 8.5 minutes remaining. Give Kansas State credit. With the score tied and the Wildcats pinned deep in their own end, Coach Snyder did not settle for the tie. Unfortunately, Straw's pass was intercepted.
Straw with a deep drop, throwing near side, looking for Pat Jackson. Pass is intercepted.
The Northern Illinois pickoff set up Robinson's 3rd rushing touchdown of the day. With 40 seconds left, as the Huskies escape with a thrilling 42-35 win.
Well, a tough loss for Kansas State, and as Drew said, really a pretty good first-half performance, but after halftime, all Northern Illinois, 29-7 on the scoreboard, and they gained over 400 yards rushing.
Yeah, it's tough to win football games when you do that, but they had a chance to win it late in the ball game. Carl Straw had his running back, Patrick Jackson, open. He underthrew him, and a couple of plays later after the pick, Kansas State went down again. There was another team, Dave, trying to go 2-1 this past week, the Missouri Tigers, and they traveled to Bloomington to take on the Hoosiers. We'll check that one out when we come back on the Big 8 Gridiron Report.
He's on his feet at 15. 25 to the 30. And it is caught. Touchdown. Great catch by Smith.
Big 8 Gridiron Report, noon Eastern, Saturday on Prime Network. Available on most Prime Network affiliates.
Yes, time again for another trivia question. We want to give credit, or lack of, to our producer, Sam Allen, who has gone over all these trivia questions. This one is a tough one.
I'm putting my hands up right now. You're holding me up with this one.
The name of the Missouri mascot. And we don't want you, it doesn't work if you just say Tiger. We got to have the actual name. Have at it, Drew.
This is a good one, Dave. You stayed up late on this one.
No, thank you,
I have no idea what his name is. Good-looking fella, though.
He is a good-looking devil, isn't he?
Yeah. What's his name?
Truman. Truman the Tiger.
And what was he?
He was the mascot of the year in 1989.
I was going to say he was like the animal of the year in Columbia or something.
Congratulations to Truman.
In any event, they could have used Truman on the field Saturday in Bloomington. I was at this ball game, and after the first couple of possessions, you figured the last team with the football was going to win this. You thought it was one of those whack affairs. Did not turn out like that. Not good news for Tiger fans. Not good news for Truman. Let's go back to Bloomington, Indiana, Saturday afternoon.
Tiger coach Bob Stoll knew coming into the 1990s season that Mizzou's success would probably rest on his team's ability to outscore the opponent. The Tigers depending on their offensive firepower to offset some weaknesses defensively. But Stoll never thought his defense would come unraveled like it did Saturday against Indiana. The Hoosiers ran up a record 58 points in Bloomington in handing the Tigers their second loss against one victory. Things started well for the Tigers behind tailback Sean Moore.
Sean Moore finding a huge hole. Moore, touchdown!
The senior from Springfield Central High School hit pay dirt the first time Mizzou touched the ball. It would be the last time the Tigers scored on what turned out to be a very long day for old Mizzou. Following Moore's touchdown, it didn't take Indiana long to tie the score. Only one play.
Look out, here comes Dunbar.
Vaughn Dunbar's gallop was the longest Indiana TD run since 1977. It also opened the floodgates for a Hoosier romp. The Tiger passing attack, among the nation's best, struggled. Quarterback Kent Kiefer completed 18 of 28 for 206 yards, but he also completed 3 to the wrong team, the Hoosiers.
Kiefer again given time. Picked off!
2 Kiefer first quarter interceptions led to Indiana scores.
Green looking for the end zone. Touchdown!
Then Rob Turner caught 2 second quarter passes for scores as Indiana roared into the locker room at halftime with a 30-7 lead. Yet Turner still had some tricks up his sleeve in the third quarter.
10 men up on the line of scrimmage. Plunkett with a good kick that time. Turner's got it at the 35. Across the 50. Look out! Here comes Turner again! He's gone!
Turner's 65-yard scamper up the Hoosier lead to 30 points. What looked like a great matchup between Midwestern rivals had turned into a real yawner, even for the hometown fans. It was the worst defeat Stoll's Missouri teams have encountered since he took over last year.
Murphy's Law, everything that can go wrong did go wrong for Bob Stoll and the Tigers Saturday. That's one you throw away and you forget about.
Quickly.
Dave, let's go back, by the way, to Truman the Tiger.
Yes.
What, pray tell, are the criteria for becoming a mascot of the year?
I thought of everybody here, I thought you might have known that.
Yeah.
I mean, you, in fact, if you were to tell the audience the truth, were the mascot of the Pitt Panthers 10 years ago. Were you not?
No, that's a false.
I thought that was...
Once again, creativity running rampant.
What do I do with this guy?
Mind of Dave Logan.
Believe it or not,
tell him what we're doing.
We are coming back. Thank you, Drew. We're going to look at the players and the plays of the week. Stick with us in the Big 8 Gridiron Report.
Sunday's lineup on Home Sports Entertainment.
Truman the Tiger and Dave Logan back with you.
We made it back.
We're back with you. It's time now for our Players of the Week. We'll begin with our Offensive Player of the Week, and it comes from Nebraska, Lincoln, Nebraska. Their quarterback, Mickey Joseph, making only his second career start, is the Big 8 Offensive Player of the Week. Joseph was 7 of 11 in the air for 117 yards and 3 touchdowns as the Cornhuskers really rolled over Minnesota. He also rushed for 32 yards and 2 more scores, accounting for 5 total offense touchdowns. The Player of the Week offensively in the Big 8 from Lincoln, Nebraska, the Cornhuskers quarterback, Mickey Joseph.
The Big 8 Defensive Player of the Week from the University of Colorado is senior outside linebacker Alfred Williams. Williams had 10 tackles Saturday night against the University of Texas, 7 solo. In addition to his 10 tackles, Williams also had 2 quarterback sacks, a tackle for loss, and 2 quarterback hurries. There was a sack of Texas quarterback Peter Gardier in the end zone for a safety, which sealed the win for Colorado. Williams, a native of Houston, Texas, is among the 12 finalists for the Lombardi and Butkus Awards this year. The Defensive Player of the Week in the Big 8 Conference, the senior outside linebacker from Colorado University, Alfred Williams.
You know, we don't just give away awards on the Big 8 Gridiron Report. If there's not a hit of the week, we won't just arbitrarily decide on what is close to a hit of the week. So
it has to be a slam bang.
It's got to be legit.
Knock him, absolutely.
So we don't have one this week, do we?
No, we don't.
But we have 2 plays of the week, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay. We'll begin with play number 1, Kansas State at Northern Illinois. Carl Straw back to pass. He's looking deep down the middle to Michael Smith, and you talk about great grabs. Look at that. Smith up high to pull it in, a gain of 42 yards. And 4 plays later, Kansas State would knock it in the end zone. Unfortunately for the Wildcats, they went on to lose that football game late, 42-35.
And the Defensive Play of the Week, the University of Nebraska against the Minnesota Golden Gophers in Lincoln, Nebraska. What a defensive team the Cornhuskers have this year. They've allowed only 14 points. This is the Play of the Week, 2nd and 9 on the Minnesota 43-yard line. Fleetwood back to pass, intended for Lewis, and the quickest player on the Husker team, number 45, John Crippen, times it perfectly. Steps in front of Lewis, intercepts the ball. Crippen, a 5'10 senior from Houston, Texas. Well, we've had the plays of the week, we've had the players of the week, and what do we do next, Drew?
What do we do next? It's time to go, isn't it?
No, sirree. We've got the prediction segment coming up. Drew, of course, on the bottom end of this.
Go ahead and gloat for a while, okay?
I shall. Stick with us. We're coming back in the Big 8 Gridiron Report.
Kansas, Oklahoma. It's a Big 8 clash of the fast and furious on Prime Network. Kansas, Tony Sands leads their double-barreled attack, and it's ready to run and gun. But Oklahoma is determined to destroy. Steve Collins powers the Sooners' assault. Big 8 football, 11:30 Eastern, Saturday, September 29th on Prime Network. Available on most Prime Network affiliates. HSE has the sport that's sweeping America. From around the globe comes Australian rules football. You'll see non-stop running, long kicking, and tackling. Do they ever stop? Not until the game is won. Watch Australian rules football from down under on HSE, the best team on TV, an affiliate of Prime Network.
At Boston College, a sputtering offense, which has gone scoreless in the first 2 games, has Jack McNell encouraging the play of the defense, which has kept BC competitive. At Navy, Alton Grizzard has had to turn his head on the wishbone of old. This season's midshipman offense has a pro-style look, featuring the running of Rodney Purifoy, while still embracing Grizzard's dangerous passing game. Navy hosts Boston College in Annapolis Saturday.
Great American football, Saturday live at 11 on HSE.
Dave Logan had some success, or Truman the Tiger, I forget what we're calling him, had some success in his career athletically, as most of you well know. He has not had a lot of success in picking ball games, which, however, I've never seen you as up, as ecstatic, as euphoric, quite frankly, as you have been all day today, because you had a good week.
However, you are behind. I wanted you to kind of fall into that.
I was leading to that.
Hey, 11-3, and you were 7-7.
Remember 1989?
As Steve Garvey told Charlie Williams, the only game he was thrown out, bear down. You've got to bear down, Drew.
You were, what, 6-1 last week?
6-1.
And I was under 500 for the first time ever.
You should be used to that.
3-4. Not a good week for me.
We will start with Western Michigan at Iowa State. Drew, it could get better. The Iowa State Cyclones coming off that loss in Iowa City. What do you think?
Blaze Bryant probably will play this week.
Yep.
I like Iowa State.
I, too, like the Cyclones. New Mexico at Kansas State. This could be a pretty good ball game if you like offensive action. Both teams can put it up and move the football.
There's a quarterback in New Mexico by the name of Jeremy Leach, and he's pretty talented. I like New Mexico on the road in an upset, mild upset.
Ooh, I'm going to take the Wildcats. We differ. Oklahoma State is idle. They don't play. A good football game. Washington rated number 11 in the country against the number 15 or 16th rated Colorado Buffaloes in Boulder. This could be a dandy.
I'm still getting over the fact that the Huskies just crush. USC doesn't get shut out by anybody, much less 35-0.
Washington, by the way, the leading defense in the country against the rush, and Colorado a very good running team. Something has to give, as they say.
Yeah, they'll have to throw the football some. I like Colorado. I think they're back on track, getting it done in the fourth quarter against Texas, and they're back in Boulder.
All right, I too like the Golden Buffaloes.
The next ball game down the list is Kansas at Oklahoma. I will be in Norman. The Sooners will win. They've got better talent, frankly.
Well, they do. I think Oklahoma wins that football game easily as well. This, too, could be a good game. Arizona State in Columbia to face the Missouri Tigers.
Bob Stowe will have Missouri playing a lot better than they did last week in Bloomington.
What do you think?
Saw Arizona State play. They might have the best quarterback in the nation as far as talking about seniors. Paul Justin, he's terrific.
Sure is.
You've seen him play.
He's a big, strong kid that they say could be the top-rated quarterback to go in next year's NFL draft.
Good back also, a redshirt freshman, George Montgomery. I think we're leading up to what I think Arizona State's going to beat Missouri.
I think Arizona State's a bit too strong for the Tigers as well. And finally, the Oregon State Beavers travel to Lincoln, Nebraska to play the Cornhuskers.
Once again, opportunity knocking at your door, Dave. Upset. You have not picked an upset yet.
Yes. I'm not going to pick one here either. Nebraska in a big way over Oregon State.
Yeah, Oregon State is the worst football team I've seen this year. They are.
Oh, good news for the Beaver fans.
Yeah, I'm sure they're not too pleased with me, but they're not good right now. They haven't won yet, and they won't win in Lincoln on Saturday.
That's it.
Hey, Dave, good luck to you this Saturday.
Thank you, Drew.
That'll do it. For Dave Logan, I'm Drew Goodman. We'll see you again next week on the Big 8 Gridiron Report.